Dr. Henry is a general practitioner, GP, in the UK NHS and an associate postgraduate dean with NHS Midlands. He is also a pastor, leadership, personal development speaker, coach, and published author. Henry believes in adding value to people and helping them multiply their results. He is married and blessed with children. Dreams Foster 2025. Make welcome our first speaker, Dr. Henry Arkin Tunde.
You're very welcome, sir. It is a pleasure to have you once again on Dream Fosters. God bless you, sir. Over to you.
Thank you very much. It is always a pleasure being here on Dream Fosters. Thank you to Wise Investment House Foundation for inviting me. I don't take it lightly. Thank you for the honor. And congratulations on your 10th year anniversary as an organization making impact in this land. So I really want to congratulate you on that. I'm just going to try and share my slides now. I want to see which bits. I'll stop sharing for a minute. Okay. Pardon me for a minute. I'm just going to get that sorted. Good. Hopefully everyone can see my slides now. My topic for this afternoon is cultivating consistency, turning dreams into reality. And I thought that a quote that aptly captures that topic is this one by Aristotle, that we are what we repeatedly do. Excellence, then, is not an act, but a habit. So what we want to talk about today is one of those factors that, although well recognized when it comes to the subject of turning dreams to reality, it is often ignored, or people feel like they could wish it away. At the end of the day, if we're going to turn our dreams in any capacity to reality, this factor of consistency is absolutely critical. I want to start with an illustration, and this illustration is not originally mine, but I think it captures the whole essence of consistency. It's one by Darren Hardy, and he talked about it in his book, The Compound Effect. So think with me for a minute. If I gave you two options, and I said, I'm going to give you I need you to choose one of two options. One would be to choose a magical pound, okay? A magical pound that doubles in value every day. So with every passing day, it doubles in value. And you would have that pound, that magical pound, for a month. Or if I say, on day one, I want to give you £3 million straight away, which of those two are you likely going to choose? So I want to see what your answers are in the chat. Which one are you likely going to choose? Is it the magical pound or the £3 million on day one? Okay, I think I can see the first
Please,
answer.
let's start engaging. You can
Option
use your
two.
chat box to
Okay.
chat and answer questions.
The magical pound, great. There are 22 of us here. I've only got 2 responses so far. Magical pound, okay, thank you. There's something magical about the magical pound, isn't it? We all like. Good. The 2 million, okay. It's actually 3 million, so Sister Otile, I'm going to add another million to that for you. So 3 million. Okay, because of my time, I won't wait for all the responses, but I can see that already we're sort of getting split. And based on all the comments that I have so far, 3 million seems to be the way. And actually, this is the whole essence of today's talk, that as human beings, our mind is sort of programmed in the direction of give me that money up front, the 3 million. Uh, but you see what happens with the magical pound is that it doubles every day. So day one, it's £1. By day two, it's £2. Day three is £4. And all of that doesn't seem to make much of a difference. So the first 20 days, it looks like, oh, I shot myself in the foot by going for the magical pound. But the real magic starts to happen around day 25 to day 30. What started as £1 on day one, by the time you get to day 31, the last day of the month, would have doubled to more than £10 million. So more, 3 times more than the amount that you accepted upfront. But we human beings don't think that way. We don't think of that if we carry on doing the same thing regularly, that at some point in the future, we're going to gain a lot more for every sacrifice that we make now. We prefer that sort of microwave type results where give it to me now. I prefer that and forget about everything else. But I'm hoping that at the end of today, part of the frame shift would be to start to think more along the line of consistency, doing the same thing regularly over and over again. So I want to start by why does consistency matters? Consistency matters because dreams are achievable, but only if they are fueled by consistent effort. Dreams will remain in dreamland if they are not backed up by consistent effort. At some point, we all have to wake up, roll up our sleeves, and start to put in the efforts, but not just putting it in on an intense level, but putting it in on a consistent level, doing the same thing, even when it appears like it isn't bringing any result. Consistency also helps us bridge the gap between intention and accomplishment. So there's intention at one end, there's accomplishment at the other end. The bridge in between is consistency, that we carry on doing the right things, trusting the system that we will eventually get the results that we need. But probably more importantly, the world system does not reward effort, but results. Okay? If you think about it, 100 meters race. Have you ever seen anybody giving a medal for completing 99 meters out of the 100 meters? As a matter of fact, there are unfortunate times when somebody may have led most of the race, maybe up to the 90th minute, and then they get a muscle cramp or something and they don't finish. They don't think, the judges don't think, oh, he was doing so well. If only he had finished, he would have won. Let's give him an intention medal that he competed, he actually wanted to finish, but there were factors beyond his control that did not enable him finish. So let's judge up to 90 meters and give him the medal. Life doesn't work that way. If a person goes to university, say for example, to study medicine, which is a 5 or 6 year course here, they don't get to year 4 and stop and they say, oh, they almost completed, so let's give him nearly doctor award. No, he doesn't get that award. The award only happens if he completes those 5 years or 6 years and he's certified to have qualified and done well in all of his training. And that system applies in everything in life. The world system does not reward effort, but results. Many times we desire to get the result every time we put in the effort. But in most instances, your effort is only rewarded when it is a consistent effort and that gets you up to the point of getting results. Anything short of that, you don't get the results. And unfortunately, the way many of us live life is that we get to the point where we put in the effort and we get close to the finishing line. But because we don't see the results, we get tired of waiting and we go and start all over again from the starting point somewhere else. And we wonder what has happened to all of our lives. Where has it gone? Why does it look like I keep walking as the elephant and I eat like the ant? Many times it's because we're not willing to wait. We don't have staying power in what we're doing to the point where we can get the results. We feel like we should have been rewarded for our effort. But unfortunately, the world system doesn't work that way. Now, the power of small steps, this is what consistency is all about. Okay, the story is told of the bamboo tree that grows in other parts of the world, like Asia, that for years, when you plant it, you water it, nothing grows. Imagine, so you plant the bamboo tree at the same time as you plant a corn. A few weeks down the line, you're already seeing evidence of the growth of the corn. A few months down the line, you're probably already harvesting. And the person that plants the bamboo tree, there's no sign at all that he's planted anything. But the farmer has got to keep faith, keep watering, and eventually, when it grows after years, it will suddenly shoot up to 80 feet in a 6-week period. And people would describe that as suddenly. And many times we describe so many people's success in that way, that they just came from nowhere suddenly. But actually, there's always a story behind suddenly. It's the story of consistency, doing what they need to do regularly to be able to get that result. If the farmer had given up somewhere along the line and stopped watering that seed, he wouldn't get this harvest that he gets in a 6-week period. So the lesson there for us is that small, consistent actions, they have a way of compounding like that magical penny, a magical pound, into massive results at the end of the day, provided we stay at it, we remain consistent. Consistency also brings mastery. This is Bruce Lee. He said something. We know Bruce Lee as a martial arts, but he was also a thought leader. He was very, very philosophical. He said, "I fear not the man who has practiced 10,000 kicks once, but I fear the man who has practiced one kick 10,000 times, because it makes that one kick deadly. The fact that he's practiced it so many times, he knows exactly what part of the body to aim that kick at to bring the most devastating effect." That's the power of consistency. It brings about mastery. When you do the same thing over and over and over again, you become a master. Now, as far as I'm concerned, many times the subject of specialism is overrated. Specialists are mainly specialists because they do the same thing over and over and over and over again, and they have become so good at it that the world is willing to give them money in exchange for their gift. It's all about the power of consistency, just doing the same thing over and over and over again. Malcolm Gladwell talks about the 10,000-hour rule. That's the rule of doing the same thing over and over and over again. I recall that in my earlier years in medical education, I took interest in one of the exit exams for general practice, the written. So there are 2 exams that people do in my profession before they become general practitioners. One of them is the written one, the other is the clinical one. And I took interest in the written one as to why are people failing this? And more so because part of the questions is in an area of my strength, which is medical statistics. And it's an area where a lot of doctors struggle. So it made me interested. At first, I started by doing teachings for people in training on medical statistics. And in time, the demand started. I started in my local area here in Northampton. In time, I started getting invitations across different parts of the East Midlands. Today, we have 9 programs, 9 local programs in East Midlands. I delivered that teaching in 8 out of the 9. But beyond that, I now took interest in other aspects of the exam. I didn't get any extra training. I just read the resources that are available to everyone else there. And in time, people came to know me as a specialist in that area. But my specialism was not about other extra training. It was just the consistent effort using the same resource that is open to everybody out there, but not everybody has the interest. And I have come to be known as a specialist. And recently, I did an interview for a role within the same organization that has something to do with providing exam support. And I got the job. And in the course of the week, I was at a conference and I was catching up with one of the people that interviewed me over lunch. And it was like, your experience in this area was too difficult to ignore. Okay, so this was, if there's anything called self-made, this was a specialist that I made myself into. And yet, when it came to talk, because the competition was very stiff, yet it stood me out because of the power of consistency. So this is what happens when you do the same thing over and over and over and over again. You gain mastery in it and you stand out without even knowing. You may look at yourself and feel like, what do I know? But because you've been doing it over and over again, you'll be surprised how you will stand out compared to others. Discipline versus motivation. In life, we like motivation. A new year starts, we have New Year resolution, okay? And motivation often starts with intensity. A common one is, I want to lose weight this year. And intensity, people start going to the gym. Maybe the first day, they even do 3 hours in the gym. They manage to do it the second day, maybe third day, and then it starts to fade out. You see, motivation will only get you so far. Consistency is built on discipline. Jim Rohn said, motivation gets you started. Habits is what will keep you going. And that's it. Motivation is good because one of the biggest stumbling blocks in the way of many people is even starting. So motivation is good to get you started, but motivation is not what's going to keep you going. Habits is what is going to keep you going. So consistency thrives on discipline, not just fleeting emotions. Consistency thrives on you being disciplined, not just fleeting emotions. Whether you want to do it or not, you have to do it. Okay, I look at people who walk their dogs regularly, and I look at myself, I say, that's number one reason why I will not get a dog. Because whether rain fall or sunshine, they will have to go and walk that dog. It's consistency. That's the power of consistency. It's not based on fleeting emotions. It's hinged on a daily habit, something you do on a daily basis. So how do we build habits that stick? Talking about this consistency issue, the first thing is to focus on the systems, not goals. Whilst the dreams, or otherwise known as the goals, is beautiful, is lofty, until you hinge it on a system that will take you to the destination, that goal is not going to be achievable. So you need to focus on systems. And systems could mean different things depending on what your goals are. But on a micro level, systems are mainly habits. They are things that you do on a regular basis. James Clear, in his book Atomic Habits, said this. He said, you do not rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your systems. You do not rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your systems. So whether or not you achieve your goals, it's only as good as the systems that they have been built on. That's the critical thing. So our system is the rate limiting step, is what decides how successful we become, not the goals. The goals have to be hinged on systems. John Maxwell supporting that statement, also said, nothing in your life will change unless you change something that you do daily. Nothing in your life will change. If you think about it, any change you want to make on a personal level, it's got to be hinged on something that you do daily. If you want to go to the gym, go daily. I remember asking a friend much earlier in my training about he's a doctor too, but he's also a fitness coach. That what is the secret about going to gym? He said, you know what? The secret is have your gym bag in your boot. Okay, go from work straight to the gym. He said the idea of you want to get home first and all of that. He said not many people will do that. That's when you remember that you're too tired or exhausted. He said have it. So whether you want to go before work or you want to go after work, let it be in the boot of your car. That's a system that is built that, okay, he recognizes that motivation can be lost somewhere along the line if he goes to the house. So he puts the bag in the boot. So that's the way it is. We need to distill our goals down to the level of system and hinge it on a daily habit, something that you're going to do every day that advances you forward in the line. That's consistency. Now, even in the face of failure, we still need to maintain consistency, because this is again where so many people fail or falter. That failure has happened and then to them it means there's no way here. Actually, failure is part of that learning process. If you are very clear about what it is you want to achieve, failure should not deter you. As a matter of fact, you should still demonstrate consistency in the face of failure. We all know about the story of Thomas Edison. It's popularly said that he failed over 1,000 times. I've seen some other references that said 10,000 times, but it looks like the correct reference is 1,000 times before he was able to invent the light bulb. Okay, 1,000 times is a lot of time for anyone to fail, but he was very clear about the goals that he wanted. And thank God he persisted. Maybe I wouldn't have been able to present today's presentation to you because I depend on electricity to be able to do it. So thank God that he carried on until he was able to invent the light bulb, as it were. Nelson Mandela details his book in his story in his autobiography, Long Walk to Freedom. It's that power of consistency, consistency of conviction, consistency of strategy. It is that power that kept him going, that even after 27 years in jail, he had not lost that vision of anti-apartheid, as it were. That is what endeared him to the world at the end of the day. And at some point, he became like the father of the whole world. It's the power of consistency that kept him going. He paid a lot of price for it, but it was not a reason to stop. So the challenge for you too is that don't be somebody who gives up readily when you meet obstacles in the form of failure. See them as stepping stones and a reason to keep going until you get the results that you want. Consistency means persistence even when results delay. Okay, consistency and trust. In leadership, consistency builds credibility, and we all have leadership inbuilt in us. I don't believe that there are some people cut out for leadership and others are not. Leadership is inbuilt in us. And one of the most important traits in all of us for the aspect of leadership that enhances our credibility is consistency. Is when we do the same thing over and over again. I remember in one of my previous churches that I was opportune to be in leadership. I remember this day that we're going to have a leadership meeting. And that day I came late to the meeting. And after the meeting, one of the other leaders came to speak to me and said, is everything okay with you? He said, I noticed you came late and that is totally out of character for you. And I said, no, everything is fine. As a matter of fact, I drove down all the way from London, so I had known that I might be late and I had sent my apologies ahead to the pastor. And the person said, oh, okay, I thought as much. I said, where? Now, that for me showed the power of consistency. I didn't have to say to this person that one of my values is punctuality. I didn't have to say. They just saw me live out that value. So much so that the one time they saw me late, they knew it was out of character. This is what happens when we build consistency. So that's consistency that I built in the area of punctuality. It applies to every other area. When you do the same thing, if you're the sort of hardworking type, people will observe you. They will see that you're hardworking. You don't even have to open your mouth to say you are hardworking. If you're the sort of person who can be trusted with money, you will show it in your attitude. People will see it. So consistency builds credibility, and that comes along with trust if we remain consistent. And people trust actions that are reliable and predictable. It's not so much what people say about themselves, it's what they can see. They trust actions that are reliable and that are predictable. And you may not know it, but every day of your life, you rely on the consistency of other people to be able to live. You rely on the consistency. You know, you just go to the switch and you turn on the light and you expect electricity to come on. You expect the light bulb to come up. It's because some people are working day and night to keep their eye on the electrical systems and making sure it's working. You turn on your tap and there is the water. It's because some people are there doing their job consistently. You show up at the bus stop and you expect the bus driver to arrive exactly when they said they would arrive. It's you relying on other people's consistency. So the message really is that we depend on other people. Consistency makes other people dependable. And the same thing applies to you. If you're not consistent, you're not dependable. And if you're not dependable, you're not of any use to anybody at the end of the day, because people rely on that predictability. That's what brings the dependability. So consistency is what makes you dependable. Now, the ripple effect of consistency is that it influences every aspect of your life, whether it's health, whether it's relationships, whether it's finances, whether it's career, whether it's your spiritual life. Consistency impacts on every of those areas. If you're going to make gains in your health, it's not going to be dependent on whether you go to gym 3 hours the first day of the year. It's going to be dependent on those health conscious habits that you make every day in your eating, in your exercise. It's going to depend on that. In your relationships, you have to be very deliberate about being consistent with certain things in how you speak, the things you do to invest into the relationship. In your finances, there'll be more talk about that, but I'm sure consistency will come up, that there are things you need to do on a regular basis if you want to make success of your finances. The same with your career, and I'll talk about career a little bit more. So success is the sum of all the small efforts that we repeat day in and day out. That's what success is the fact that we do it day in, day out, and we've been doing it for such a long time that we ultimately get to the point where we achieve what is called success. Robert Collier said that. So in career, there's a bad habit that I find here in the UK, and that is that people always gravitate towards what they say is the reigning career. Not so much because there's demand there, but it's just because what people say, this is the reigning career now. If they say nursing is what is reigning, everybody wants to become a nurse, whether they have passion for nursing or not. If it is IT, everybody wants to go into IT. If it is project management, everybody wants to go there. And for many people, all this zigzag movement is what is stopping you from achieving success, because you have not stayed long enough in any career for you to be able to do it to the point of building success. Proverbs 14:23. Pardon me and allow me this quote from the Holy Book. It says, there's profit in all labor, but mere talk leads to only poverty. My emphasis is on that first part. there's profit in all labor. If you look at every single field of human endeavor, there's profit there. There are people who have made success in those areas. And if they've done so, it tells me that if that is also your area and you are consistent, you will ultimately make success of it. A friend of mine, I invited him to speak in a group that I oversee in the last few weeks. And he was telling the story of a friend of his who was determined, came from the nation of Nigeria, relocated here in the UK. And his gifting and his calling is in the academia. And he was determined that he wanted to work in the academia. Obviously, the system threw all sorts of challenges at him. He got several no's in spite of so many applications. At some point, he had to take on a 0-hour contract in the care sector, but he did not let go of that vision. He stuck to it. Finally, he applied for this job that literally his friends forced him to sit down by the computer and apply for the job. And lo and behold, eventually he got the lecturing job. Whilst he was still doing all this care job and all of that, the guy did not give up on the academia. He was still publishing. It was the papers that he published following his PhD whilst he was still doing care job. That was what got him the job ultimately. But that's the power of consistency. So provided you are passionate about what you're doing, provided you have a goal in what you're doing, provided you have a vision there, don't join the bandwagon and run somewhere else because you hear this is what is profiting people right now. Recognize that where you are working, there's profit. There are people that have made profit there. In all labor, there is profit. My famous story in this area, and it's a true life story. I come from the nation of Nigeria, and one of the popular cities in Nigeria is Lagos. One of my favorite sites when I'm entering Lagos or leaving Lagos, those of you that know Lagos will know Ojodubaga area. If you're coming into Lagos, it will be to your left-hand side. There's this man, he's been there forever. His business is in human waste disposal, sewage disposal. That's so not a very popular area. But he's made money in it that he put up this banner boldly. The banner is still there. I still saw it when I went to Nigeria earlier this year. And I'm not going to use the word he uses, but the translation is basically that money that you make from sewage does not smell, okay? Although sewage itself smells, the money doesn't. So, and I think that's a perfect way to illustrate it, that in all labor, there's profit. But if we stay consistent in what we are doing. So how do we cultivate consistency? I think that the goal is to start small, okay? Start small, one that you know you can maintain and you can achieve easily, okay? So if you are not the type that's been doing anything about your health, okay? You can't just suddenly say, I want to be going to the gym every day and be doing weightlifting and whatever there. No, even if it's to set a goal of, I want to walk for 15 minutes every day. I know I can achieve that. So beyond my normal walking around, just deliberate, health conscious kind of walk. Start small. The same thing with your goals. If your goal relates to writing, you want to be an author or something. So I want to start writing a blog, one article a week or something. Just do something in the light of your calling, but start small. Then track your progress. Ensure that you're carrying on. So put times in when you will review your progress. So plan some time into your week, maybe 1 hour to just review. How has the week gone? How have I done in the area that I want to work on, this area that I'm interested in? You need to track your progress. And as you see that you're progressing, take incremental steps. So if it is finances, for example, and I'm telling you what I've done. Initially, I was at a point where, regardless of what I was earning, I was not having any savings any month. And then I said, let me start with £100 a month. Okay, let me start with that. And as I began to progress, I increased it to £300 and I increased it further. and I've been increasing it that way. That's the way it should be. Take incremental steps. You start small, you track your progress, but you take incremental steps. Don't just stop where you started. That starting small was to give you the motivation you needed. But now that you have made it a habit, trust the habit and carry on and continue to increase. Stay accountable. Stay accountable. And accountability may be that in terms of you're being accountable to somebody, or you have a system around you that makes you accountable. One of the ways I am accountable in terms of my savings is that I have savings accounts that reward me if I don't take out of the money for a month and punish me if I take out of it. So that's my accountability system when it comes to finances, as it were. And reward yourself, reward milestones. Otherwise, because I said with every effort, you don't get the reward until the end. But sometimes you have to reward yourself along the way when you achieve milestones. Otherwise, you lose the motivation. So, yes, I'm pumping all this money into property and I'm thinking nothing is coming from the company and all of that. So, occasionally, some money will come. I'll say, actually, I'm going to give myself a treat this time. The next time I'm traveling, I'm going to travel business class, okay? Take some money out of there and give myself a treat. Sometimes it may be as small, I'm going to go out and eat a nice meal. Not homemade food, I just want to eat what I want to eat to reward myself for milestones. Okay, so reward milestones. It's important. It keeps you going in terms of motivation. Tiger Woods it's a very good example of somebody who reached the peak of his career through the power of consistency. They said when he was at his peak, his routine was such that he would wake up in the morning and do not just, even though he's a golfer, he would do exercise along the area of physical fitness, including gymming to build his physical, his his ability to endure, his endurance, as it were. And then he goes to the golf course and he will hit balls for hours. He will practice his swing, he will practice his putt, all aspects of his game, he will practice. Then goes about the normal day, and in the evening, he will have another session. So, 2 intensive sessions of training on a regular basis. No wonder at the time he was reading, there was nobody that came anywhere close as a number 2. It was consistent practice, it was discipline, it was refinement that got him to that level. So I want to give you a call to action as I conclude. And this is for you to reflect. What daily consistent actions can you take today? And I've given examples of the different aspects of your life where that might apply, whether it's your health, whether it's your relationships, whether it's your spiritual life, whether it's your finances, whether it's your career. What daily consistent action can you start to take from today that would move you closer to your dreams? I want you to think about that because your reality is going to be shaped by your consistency at the end of the day. Yes, all the other elements of success important, vision, hard work, and all of that. But consistency is the one that is often ignored. And that's the one that often generates the results. As I round up, I want to share with you, it's like a poem that I read, somebody shared with me about 10 years ago, if I recall well. And it just came on my WhatsApp at the time, and it's titled Just Drops. And it's about 3 minutes long, and I've done a narration of that poem to just show you. I think it drives home the power of consistency that we're talking about. So please bear with me and just follow through. But there's the points there for you. Just Drops, a reflection on how small beginnings lead to great transformation. It started with the faint sound of water, just drops, falling into an empty bucket. Slow, steady, almost unnoticeable. I paid it no attention and went to sleep. But in the morning, I was astonished. The bucket was almost full. Just drops. Could something so small fill so much overnight? The next night, I closed the tap tightly, and in the morning, the bucket was not as wet as before. It was completely dry. And in that simple observation, I learned the power of a single drop. If I allowed those drops to continue for a year, I would need drums to hold the water. Each drop, insignificant on its own, becomes unstoppable in its accumulation. What if we treated our lives the same way? A drop of savings, a drop of kindness and love, a drop of reading a useful book, a drop of a verse of scripture, a drop of prayer today, a drop of worship tomorrow, a small step towards the dream God placed in your heart, a single act of giving into your heavenly account. What virtue, what discipline will you start today in little drops? Never neglect the importance of the small thing. Because when the harvest time comes, the difference you've made, one drop at a time, will be immeasurable. Just drops. They don't look like much at first, but they are the difference between emptiness and abundance, between intention and transformation. Start your drops today. Thank you. Thank you all for listening. I'll hand over to the moderator.